The quiet power of focus. In every generation, some people stand out, not because they were born with extraordinary gifts, but because they developed an extraordinary ability to remain focused. They choose a path, and with steady discipline, they walk it until they arrive at their destination. This ability is what separates those who win from those who merely dream. Focus, at its core, is the ability to direct one's attention and energy toward a single goal without being consumed by distractions. In our modern world, where information streams endlessly and temptations arrive with every notification, the ability to remain focused is increasingly rare. Yet it is also more valuable than ever. A focused person multiplies the value of their time. A distracted person spends hours moving, but not progressing. The idea of focusing until you win is not just about productivity. It is about cultivating a mindset of persistence. To focus until you win means to make your goal the anchor of your attention, to return to it every day, and to continue working toward it even when progress feels invisible. Winning, in this sense, is not just about crossing a finish line. It is about refusing to be pulled away from the path until the finish line is crossed. This guide explores what it means to focus until you win. We will examine why focus matters, how it can be developed, and how it is sustained in the face of challenges. We will look at the habits, attitudes, and environments that allow focus to flourish. And ultimately, we will see that victory belongs not to the most talented, but to the most consistently attentive, to those who never stop moving forward, one intentional step at a time. Why focus determines winners. Every person in life is given the same currency of time. We each have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and a limited number of years in which to make our mark. The difference between those who achieve great things and those who do not is rarely a matter of how much time they have, but of how they use it. Focus is the discipline that determines whether time becomes an investment or a waste. A person without focus may work hard but scatter their energy across too many directions. They begin a project, abandon it, and chase after another idea. They get distracted by the next opportunity, the next piece of entertainment, or the next wave of fear. Months pass, and their energy has been spent, but no lasting result stands as evidence of their effort. This is how many people live, constantly busy, yet never moving closer to their real goals. By contrast, the focused person chooses a single path and continues to walk it, even when it is difficult. Their progress may appear slow at first, but over time, the accumulation of consistent effort creates undeniable results. It is much like a stream of water. A scattered spray will barely dampen the ground, but when water is concentrated into a single, steady flow, it can carve valleys into stone. Focus gives ordinary people the power to accomplish extraordinary things because it allows their energy to build in one direction instead of being wasted in many. History is filled with examples of this principle. Great inventors, athletes, writers, and leaders all demonstrate the same truth. Talent opens the door, but focus walks through it. Consider the student who studies with deep concentration versus the one who studies while distracted. The difference is not intelligence, it is attention. The same truth holds in careers, relationships, and personal growth. Winners are not necessarily those who start with the most advantages, but those who remain faithful to their chosen course until the goal is achieved. This is why focus is the deciding factor in victory. Success is not a matter of doing everything, but of doing the most important things with full attention, repeatedly, until the win is secured. The nature of focus. To understand how to focus until you win, we must first ask, what is focus really? Many people mistake it for intensity, as though focus is simply about working harder, louder, or faster. But true focus is not about force, it is about direction. It is the quiet art of channeling one's energy into a single line, instead of scattering it across many. Focus begins with attention, the ability to hold the mind steady on one thought, one task, or one goal without being pulled away. In an age filled with distractions, attention has become one of the most valuable human resources. Neuroscientists often describe attention as a spotlight. Wherever it shines, our mental energy flows. When the spotlight is steady, progress is made. When it jumps from one thing to another, we become exhausted but achieve little. Yet focus is more than just attention. It is also discipline, Because holding attention in one direction requires effort and endurance. The mind is naturally restless. It resists stillness and is easily tempted by novelty. Discipline trains the mind to resist these impulses, to return again and again to the chosen object of concentration. Without discipline, attention flickers like a candle in the wind. With discipline, attention becomes a steady flame. Another essential element of focus is purpose. When a person knows why they are doing something, it becomes easier to sustain concentration. A student studying only because they may lose interest quickly, but a student studying because they dream of becoming a doctor or an engineer will find a deeper reservoir of motivation. Purpose acts like fuel for focus, transforming what might feel like a burden into a meaningful pursuit. It is also important to recognize that focus does not eliminate struggle, it embraces it. To be focused does not mean that distractions disappear or that the path becomes smooth. Instead, it means choosing to return to the path again and again, no matter how many times the mind wanders or the body grows weary. Focus is not a one-time act, but a continual decision. I will keep my eyes on the goal. When we see focus in this way, as attention, discipline, and purpose, we begin to understand why it is so powerful. It is not about working the hardest for a single day, but about directing one's energy in the same direction for months, years, or even a lifetime. In the end, focus is not just a skill but a way of living, a deliberate choice to value depth over distraction, meaning over noise, and perseverance over immediate gratification. Setting clear goals, the first step to focus. If focus is the art of directing energy in one direction, then the question naturally follows, in which direction should it be directed? Without a clear destination, focus loses its strength. To concentrate deeply without knowing the purpose is like pouring water onto the ground. It spreads aimlessly and disappears. But when water is directed into a channel, it becomes powerful enough to generate rivers, irrigate fields, and even move turbines. Similarly, human focus requires clear goals to bear fruit. A goal gives the mind an anchor. It provides something solid to hold onto when distractions arise. Without goals, we are left vulnerable to every passing desire, every temporary excitement, and every shift in mood. One day we may feel motivated, and the next day we may not. One moment we may be enthusiastic about one project, and the next moment we may abandon it for another. Goals act as a compass that anchors us from drifting endlessly in circles. The first step in setting goals is clarity. It is not enough to say, I want to be successful, or I want to do well. Success must be defined in terms that can be measured and understood. For example, a student who says, I want to improve my grades in mathematics by the end of the semester, has a clearer target than one who says, I want to do better in school. Clarity reduces confusion, and where there is less confusion, focus thrives. The second step is realism. A goal should stretch a person, not break them. Impossibly high goals can lead to frustration and abandonment, while goals that are too low inspire little motivation. The key is to choose a challenge that is demanding enough to awaken determination, but not so overwhelming that it feels unreachable. For instance, running a marathon may begin with the simple goal of running 1 mile without stopping. Each small victory strengthens focus, making the larger victories possible. The third step is alignment with one's values and vision. Focus is difficult to sustain when the goal does not truly matter to the person pursuing it. Many people find themselves chasing goals that belong to others, expectations of family, society, or peers, rather than goals that arise from their own convictions. This creates inner resistance, and focus quickly fades. But when goals are aligned with personal values, the energy to pursue them flows naturally. A writer who loves words will find it easier to remain focused on finishing a book than someone who writes only to gain approval. Finally, goals should be written down and revisited often. The human mind forgets, wanders, and gets distracted easily. Recording one's goals and reviewing them regularly is like sharpening a blade. It keeps the edge keen. Many successful individuals begin their day by reminding themselves of their most important aims. This simple act strengthens focus by keeping the destination visible at all times. When goals are clear, realistic, and aligned with personal values, they create a strong foundation for focus. They transform effort from a vague intention into a purposeful journey. A person who knows precisely what they are working toward is far more likely to persist through difficulties, because every action has meaning, every sacrifice has a reason, and every day of discipline becomes a step closer to victory. The power of consistency. If clarity of goals provides the direction, consistency provides the motion. It is not enough to know where one is going. Progress is only made by taking steps, again and again, in the same direction. This is the essence of consistency. Small actions repeated faithfully until they accumulate into something far greater than the sum of their parts. Many people underestimate the power of consistent effort. They imagine that success arrives through a single burst of inspiration or a dramatic leap forward. In truth, most victories are the result of steady, almost ordinary acts repeated over time. The student who masters a subject does not do so through one long night of study, but through months of daily review. The athlete who becomes a champion is not made in a single game, but in countless hours of practice that no one else sees. The writer who produces a book does not write it in one sitting, but in hundreds of sessions, adding page after page. Consistency turns effort into momentum. At first, the progress may seem invisible. A person may go to the gym for a week and see no change, or practice a skill for a month and feel little improvement. This is the point where many give up, assuming that their work is in vain. But the consistent person continues, understanding that results grow quietly beneath the surface before they are visible. Just as seeds must remain buried before they sprout, so too must effort remain unseen before it blossoms into achievement. Consistency also builds resilience. When we commit to showing up every day, regardless of mood or motivation, we train ourselves to endure discomfort. Some days will be easier, others harder. But consistency teaches us that what matters is not how we feel in the moment, but whether we keep moving forward. Over time, this creates a strength of character that becomes invaluable in the pursuit of long-term goals. Furthermore, consistency compounds over time, much like interest in a bank account. Small investments may seem insignificant at first, but when repeated steadily, they grow into something extraordinary. A person who reads 10 pages of a book each day may not notice much difference in a week, but in a year, they will have finished more than a dozen books. In 10 years, they will possess a depth of knowledge that sets them apart. This is the quiet power of consistency. It transforms small actions into monumental results. The challenge of consistency lies in its simplicity. Because the actions are small, it is easy to dismiss them. It is easy to say, missing one day will not matter, or skipping this task is harmless. But just as consistency builds success, inconsistency erodes it. Each skipped step weakens the chain, while each completed step strengthens it. The wise person understands that greatness is hidden in the daily choices that seem too small to matter. Ultimately, consistency is the bridge between focus and victory. It is what allows goals to move from imagination into reality. A person who remains consistent does not need to rush, because steady progress ensures arrival. In the end, it is not the one who starts with the most energy who wins, but the one who keeps going, steadily, day after day, until the finish line is crossed. Overcoming distractions. If consistency is the engine of progress, then distractions are the obstacles scattered across the road. No matter how clear the goal or how strong the desire is, focus is continually tested by the countless interruptions of life. Learning to overcome distractions is, therefore, an essential part of sustaining attention until the goal is reached. Distractions come in many forms. Some are external, like the buzzing of a phone, the endless scroll of social media, or the sudden demand of someone else's priorities. Others are internal, arising from within the mind itself, daydreams, self-doubt, fatigue, or the whisper that says, maybe I should do something else instead. Both kinds are powerful because they pull attention away from the task at hand and scatter the energy needed to move forward. The first step in overcoming distractions is to be aware of them. Often, distractions succeed because they go unnoticed. A person may intend to study for an hour, only to glance at a notification for just a moment and discover that half an hour has slipped away. Becoming conscious of how attention is stolen is the beginning of taking it back. Some people find it helpful to track their time, noticing exactly where it goes. This simple practice can reveal how much of the day is quietly consumed by distractions that yield little value. The second step is the environment. The spaces in which we live and work play a large role in shaping our ability to focus. A cluttered desk can invite a cluttered mind, while a space designed for concentration can naturally encourage deeper work. Turning off notifications, keeping only necessary tools within reach, or designating a quiet place for study and reflection can significantly reduce the temptation to drift. In this way, the environment becomes an ally of focus rather than an enemy. The third step is mastering internal distractions. These are often more difficult because they arise from the restless nature of the mind itself. Thoughts wander, doubts creep in, emotions fluctuate. To handle these inner distractions, practices like mindfulness and journaling can be invaluable. Mindfulness trains the mind to notice wandering thoughts and gently return to the present task. Journaling allows worries to be expressed on paper, freeing mental space for more productive focus. Even brief pauses for reflection or breathing can reset attention when it begins to scatter. Another important strategy is to create boundaries around time. The mind often resists long periods of concentration, but it can handle focus in smaller segments. Techniques such as working in timed intervals, 30 minutes of deep focus followed by a short break, can make sustained attention more manageable. These boundaries remind the mind that focus is not a punishment but a rhythm, alternating between effort and rest. Finally, it is essential to remember that not all distractions are harmful in themselves. Social media, entertainment, and conversations with others can be valuable in the right context. The danger arises only when they interrupt what matters most. Overcoming distractions, therefore, is not about rejecting life's pleasures, but about placing them in their proper time and place. It is about choosing when to engage with them, rather than allowing them to choose for us. In the end, distractions will never vanish completely. They will always appear, both from the world outside and from the thoughts within. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to manage them, to notice them, to set boundaries against them, and to return again and again to the chosen path. A person who learns to master distractions becomes like a sailor who, though winds and waves may push them off course, always adjusts the sail and returns to the line of travel. And in doing so, they ensure that their focus remains unbroken until the journey is complete. Resilience, staying focused through failure. Every worthwhile pursuit carries with it the shadow of difficulty. No matter how clear the goal, no matter how disciplined the effort, setbacks will arrive. Plans will fall apart. Results will not always match expectations. For many, this is the breaking point where focus fades and the dream is abandoned. But for those who endure, failure becomes not the end, but a teacher. Resilience, the capacity to remain steady through difficulty, is what allows focus to survive when circumstances would otherwise destroy it. Failure is often misunderstood. To many, it feels like a final judgment, proof that the effort was wasted or that the dream is impossible. In reality, failure is usually a stage of the process, a necessary step in the learning curve. No one masters a skill on the first attempt. No one builds strength in a single workout. No one achieves greatness without first stumbling, sometimes repeatedly. To see failure as permanent is to misunderstand its role. To see it as feedback is to transform it into progress. Resilience begins with perspective. When a setback occurs, the question is not, why me? But rather, what can I learn from this? The resilient mind does not take failure as a personal verdict, but as information. It studies what went wrong, adapts, and tries again with greater wisdom. This perspective turns obstacles into stepping stones and prevents discouragement from erasing focus. Another element of resilience is patience. Modern culture often celebrates speed, quick results, overnight success, and immediate gratification. But lasting achievements rarely happen quickly. They require seasons of effort, stretches of waiting, and the slow accumulation of small victories. Impatience magnifies failure, making every delay feel like defeat. Patience, on the other hand, steadies the heart, reminding us that time itself is part of the process. Those who endure long enough to see the harvest are those who do not allow temporary difficulties to cloud their vision. Resilience is also strengthened by community. Carrying a burden alone can make setbacks feel heavier than they are. However, sharing struggles with trusted friends, mentors, or peers provides encouragement and perspective. A single word of support at the right time can revive focus when it is about to fade. History is filled with examples of great achievers who leaned on others during their most difficult moments, finding in fellowship the strength to continue. Finally, resilience rests on the conviction that the goal is worth the struggle. A shallow goal, chosen without real conviction, is easily abandoned at the first sign of difficulty. But a goal rooted in deep meaning provides the energy to rise again after every fall. When the why is strong enough, the how becomes bearable. The resilient person remembers not only what they are doing, but why they began, and this memory restores the courage to try once more. In summary, resilience does not eliminate failure. It transforms it. The resilient person may stumble, but they rise. They may be delayed, but they are not stopped. They may face disappointment, but they do not surrender their focus. And through this unyielding spirit, they discover a truth that many never learn. The path to victory is not the absence of failure, but the determination to continue walking despite it. The psychology of long-term focus. To sustain focus for a day is admirable. To maintain it for months or years is rare. Yet it is precisely this long-term focus that distinguishes those who achieve lasting success from those whose efforts fade away. The psychology of long-term focus involves understanding how the mind works over time and learning how to nurture habits and attitudes that allow attention to endure through changing seasons of life. One of the first psychological truths to recognize is the principle of delayed gratification. People are naturally drawn to immediate rewards. The pleasure of a snack, the thrill of entertainment, or the ease of rest all offer instant satisfaction. Long-term goals, however, rarely provide such immediate rewards. They often require sacrifice now for results that may not be visible for months or years. This tension between the present and the future is at the heart of being focused. Those who learn to postpone short-term comfort for long-term achievement cultivate the strength to stay the course. Another important element is the concept of the flow state. Psychologists describe flow as a condition in which a person becomes fully immersed in an activity, losing awareness of time and distraction. In this state, work feels natural and engaging rather than forced. Long-term focus becomes far easier when a person regularly experiences flow, because the journey itself becomes rewarding, not just the destination. While flow cannot be commanded at will, it can be encouraged by working on tasks that are both meaningful and appropriately challenging. Not too easy to be boring, but not so difficult as to be overwhelming. Long-term focus also requires adaptability. Life changes. Circumstances shift. What was once possible may later require adjustment. A rigid approach can lead to frustration, while flexibility allows a person to remain committed to the goal even as the path bends. For example, a person who cannot train in one way due to injury may find an alternative method, keeping their vision alive despite the obstacle. Adaptability prevents discouragement by reminding us that there is more than one way forward. A further psychological tool is the use of milestones. Large goals can feel distant, and distance often weakens motivation. Breaking a large ambition into smaller, measurable steps provides frequent points of achievement, each of which fuels continued effort. These milestones act like markers on a long road, assuring the traveler that progress is being made even when the destination is still far ahead. Equally important is cultivating self-belief. Long-term focus demands confidence that the effort is not wasted. Without belief, the mind easily gives way to doubt, asking, "What if I never succeed?" But belief acts as an anchor, holding focus steady against the storms of uncertainty. This belief is not blind optimism. It is the recognition that consistent effort, over time, produces results. Trust in this process allows focus to survive when the outcome is not yet visible. Finally, long-term focus is supported by rhythm. Human beings cannot sustain constant intensity. Attempting to do so leads to exhaustion and burnout. Instead, The psychology of endurance recognizes the importance of balance, periods of hard work followed by rest, cycles of effort and renewal. This rhythm keeps the mind fresh and prevents fatigue from eroding commitment. When these psychological principles, delayed gratification, flow, adaptability, milestones, belief, and rhythm, are combined, focus becomes sustainable across years rather than days. It transforms from a temporary effort into a way of living, a quiet but steady force that shapes every choice and action. Those who understand this psychology learn to pace themselves, to encourage themselves, and to persevere with a calm determination that carries them steadily to victory. Practical strategies to train your focus. Understanding the nature of focus, the importance of consistency, and the psychology of long-term effort is valuable, but knowledge alone is not enough. Focus must be trained, much like a muscle that grows stronger through repeated use. Fortunately, there are many practical strategies that can help cultivate this strength and make focus a natural part of daily life. One of the simplest yet most powerful practices is mindfulness meditation. Sitting quietly, observing the breath, and gently returning attention whenever the mind wanders may seem like a small exercise, but it directly trains the skill of focus. Each time the mind drifts and is brought back, the ability to sustain attention is strengthened. Over time, this practice carries into everyday life, making it easier to remain present with whatever task is at hand. Another effective strategy is journaling. Writing down thoughts, goals, and reflections helps clear the mental clutter that often distracts us. When worries or ideas swirl endlessly in the mind, they compete for attention. Placing them on paper frees mental space, allowing greater clarity. Journaling also creates a record of progress, reminding us of how far we have come and renewing motivation to continue. Time management techniques can also serve as valuable tools. One popular approach is the Pomodoro technique, which involves working with full concentration for a set period, often 25 minutes, followed by a short break. This rhythm prevents fatigue and trains the mind to focus deeply in manageable intervals. Similarly, batching tasks, grouping similar activities, reduces the mental cost of switching from one thing to another, allowing focus to remain steady. Designing the environment is another key. A person who wishes to eat healthily does not keep sweets within reach. Similarly, a person who wishes to focus should shape their environment to support concentration. This may mean silencing notifications, keeping only necessary tools on the desk, or creating a dedicated workspace free from distractions. Small changes in surroundings often yield large improvements in attention. Physical health also plays a subtle yet vital role. The mind functions best when the body is cared for. Adequate sleep, regular exercise, and balanced nutrition all contribute to sharper concentration. Fatigue and poor health make distractions more powerful, while energy and vitality strengthen the ability to stay focused. Thus, caring for the body is itself an act of training the mind. Another practical tool is the use of rituals and routines. When tasks are tied to consistent habits, such as writing every morning at the same time or reviewing notes before bed, the mind learns to associate those times with focus. This reduces the need for willpower because the behavior becomes automatic. Over time, routines create a rhythm of productivity that sustains itself. Finally, it can be helpful to use visual reminders of one's goals. A simple note on the wall, a vision board, or a list of daily priorities keeps the destination visible. Each reminder serves as a quiet call back to what matters most, especially when distractions tempt us to wander. These small signals help align daily actions with long-term intentions. Training focus is not about perfection. Even with the best strategies, the mind will wander and distractions will appear. What matters is the continual return, the steady practice of choosing again and again to give attention to what is most important. Over time, these practices build not only a stronger focus, but also greater patience, discipline, and resilience. They shape the mind into an instrument capable of sustained effort, guiding it calmly, but firmly toward victory. The spiritual dimension of focus. While focus can be explained through psychology, discipline, and practical strategies, there is another dimension that deserves attention: the spiritual. For many people, The ability to stay focused is not only a matter of habits and techniques, but also of meaning. When life feels rooted in something larger than personal ambition, focus gains a depth that carries it through difficulties that might otherwise feel unbearable. At its heart, spirituality is about purpose. It asks not only what we are doing, but why we are doing it. When goals are tied to deeper values, whether those values arise from faith, a sense of service, or a personal philosophy, the journey takes on a greater significance. A person who writes a book merely to earn recognition may lose interest when challenges arise, but a person who writes because they believe their words might help others will find renewed strength to continue, even when progress feels slow. This dimension also provides perspective. Many distractions and setbacks seem large only when viewed in isolation. A missed opportunity, a temporary failure, or a season of difficulty can feel overwhelming if we see our lives only in terms of immediate results. However, when we place our journey in the context of something greater, faith in God, trust in destiny, or a belief in serving humanity, these obstacles shrink. They are seen as part of a larger story, one that still holds meaning even when individual chapters are difficult. Spiritual practices can also directly support focus. Prayer, meditation, fasting, or reflection have long been used to quiet the mind and discipline the body. These practices are not merely rituals, they are forms of training, teaching us to resist distraction, control impulses, and return to what matters most. In this way, spiritual and focused living often reinforce one another. Moreover, the spiritual dimension encourages humility. It reminds us that focus is not only about personal victory, but also about contribution. The scientist who devotes decades to research, the teacher who patiently nurtures generations of students, the caregiver who attends faithfully to the needs of others, all demonstrate focus that is grounded not in personal gain, but in service. Such focus tends to endure, because it is tied not to fleeting rewards, but to enduring values. Finally, spirituality offers hope. Long journeys can feel discouraging, especially when progress is invisible. But hope, the belief that our efforts have meaning, that the work will bear fruit, that perseverance is not in vain, gives focus and the strength to continue. Spirituality often speaks of sowing and reaping, of laboring in faith even when the harvest is unseen. This hope allows focus to survive where motivation might otherwise fail. In this way, the spiritual dimension of focus adds depth to discipline. It transforms focus from a tool of achievement into a way of living with integrity, purpose, and resilience. For those who embrace it, focus becomes not only the means to win, but also the expression of a life aligned with meaning, guided by values, and sustained by faith. The victory of the focused mind. To focus until you win is not a slogan, it is a way of life. It is the quiet discipline of choosing, day after day, to keep one's eyes fixed on what truly matters, despite the distractions, difficulties, and delays that inevitably arise. It is the art of giving attention not to everything, but to the essential things, and of doing so long enough for results to grow. We have seen that focus begins with clarity. Without a clear goal, energy scatters and effort dissolves. With clarity, however, the mind finds an anchor that holds it steady. We have also seen that focus is sustained by consistency, the daily rhythm of small steps repeated until they accumulate into extraordinary results. Yet consistency is challenged by distractions, both external and internal, which must be recognized, managed, and overcome. Resilience gives focus and the strength to endure when failure interrupts the journey. Rather than seeing setbacks as permanent, the resilient person uses them as lessons, stepping stones along the way. Psychology teaches us how long-term focus is possible through delayed gratification, adaptability, milestones, belief, and rhythm. Practical strategies, from mindfulness and journaling to time management and environment design, provide the tools to strengthen attention in our everyday lives. And beyond all these, the spiritual dimension reminds us that focus draws its deepest power from purpose, meaning, and hope. When all of these elements come together, focus becomes more than a skill. It becomes a habit of being. It shapes how we think, act, and live. It enables us to navigate a world full of distractions, without losing our direction, and to face a life full of challenges without losing our courage. In the end, victory belongs not only to the strongest or the most talented, but to the one who remains faithful to the path. To focus until you win is to believe that steady effort is never wasted, that setbacks are never final, and that true success is not about speed, but about endurance. It is the assurance that if we keep our eyes fixed, our steps steady, and our hearts patient, we will, in time, arrive at the finish line. Thus, the call is simple yet profound. Choose what matters most, give it your undivided attention, return to it daily, and remain faithful until the end. For in that quiet, steady focus lies the power to transform dreams into reality and to turn ordinary lives into extraordinary victories. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.